Steve, thank you for your time. We're here at KPMG's EMA Tax Conference. You are a senior economist with KPMG in the United States in the transfer pricing team. And you were just talking about what's going on at the OECD. Tell me what's going on with BEPS 2.0.
Well, really good question, Rodney. So we are now referring to the efforts that the OECD did leading up to the 2015 issuances of guidance around actions 8 to 10 and various other measures as BEPS 1.0. And the reason we're calling it BEPS 1.0 now is that the OECD is now continuing and particularly pursuing what was Action 1 in the original BEPS action plan, which is the digitization of the economy and what are the tax implications of that. This is now top of the agenda, and there's essentially consensus that new action is needed. Countries are enacting unilateral measures, DST or digital services taxes, on various digital services, and this has the international community worried that we're going down a path of unilateral rather than consensus measures on international corporate taxation. This has converged as what is now referred to as BEPS 2.0, which is looking at new profit allocation measures that would sit either alongside of or potentially even displacing current transfer pricing in order to solve what some countries view very strongly as the distortions caused by the digitization of the economy, which they feel renders some of the existing profit attribution rules as unsuited for purpose. This is, on the one hand, very much nascent in the approaches that are being taken. They're in very early stages. They've just issued a work plan to the G20 on how they're going to do this. There's some sketches of measures having to do potentially with a modified residual profit split or other profit allocation measures, even considering some versions of formulary apportionment. But many open questions about how it's going to be implemented. On the other hand, they are on a very fast track in terms of getting this done. They've committed to having some preliminary thoughts in terms of narrowing the approaches by the end of this year, and a final program, a final plan to the G20 by the end of 2020. What clients need to know about this are two things. Number one is it is very likely that whatever measures will be adopted will be widely applicable, not simply applicable to highly digitized business models. The second thing to understand, so this will impact you. Change is coming, it's going to happen. The world is not going to be the same. There's either going to be consensus on new measures that depart from what we're doing now, or there's going to be a lot of unilateral measures uncoordinated to deal with. The second thing companies need to know, though, is that there is a lot of room to influence this process. The OECD is very aware of the extent of what they don't know. They have a lot of questions about how different types of measures will impact different business models. They're looking at things in terms of very simple business models now, and there's a lot of need to educate them on how such measures might affect more complicated business models. They have lots of questions just about accounting, about how robust is segment accounting, regional accounting, because they want these measures to be based on easily auditable measures. So there's a great deal of room now to engage with tax authorities and the OECD in terms of talking about companies, different business models, how they work, and how different measures would affect them.
Fascinating. And are we seeing clients taking that opportunity to engage with the OECD and tax authorities during this process?
Yes, we definitely are. There have been some companies have been active even very early on, submitting comments at the OECD discussion forum back earlier this year about potential ways of approaching this. I think that in part inspired other companies to say, well, wait a minute, those proposals don't work well for me, and now getting engaged. And so a number of prominent companies, certainly in the US, and we're beginning to see some in other countries now getting engaged with their local tax authority, with their local finance ministry, as well as with the OECD, talking about different alternatives and kicking around ideas.
Gosh, that's just such a big thing. If any of these proposals come through, I can only imagine that companies are facing a real change in their landscape in terms of their effective tax rate and how they manage their taxes globally.
The landscape is absolutely changing, and companies need to somehow grasp, and their advisors need to somehow grasp, how do we plan for uncertainty? How do we put in place structures that we think will be reasonably robust over a range of possible outcomes of this very uncertain process?
Got it. Well, Steve, I can only imagine it's no surprise that you're one of the most popular people here at the conference today with this topic. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll let you get back to things. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Rodney.